Hello, and welcome to Project 2029, the death of liberal democracy. Actually, we're not going to talk about that too much today. We are going to, in fact, try and talk about the media and the state of the media. But nonetheless, I was going to open this with a preamble about like how liberal democracy is on its last legs. And in 2029, we'll probably see the end of normal democratic governments around the West. We're already seeing it in the US and we'll see it in Europe by that point for a bunch of really good reasons. And this is very provable, but we don't have time for that today. We need to talk about the media. We need to talk about the media and what we're going to do about it and what we're going to do about it in preparation for 2029. But mostly, what are we going to do about it so that we don't feel like total shit all the time? Because we need to talk about what's going on with the media. The media is the way that we get stories about the world. And we have to understand that stories are the way that we understand the world. We don't understand it through facts and figures. I mean, sometimes we don't really think about the world and just take in what's around us. We hear stories, we get told stories, and that's what makes us think of gods and understand the weather and tell tales to each other to not go in the forest. It's the way that we feel the world. And in a world where we've got family and friends and illness and recovery and heartbreak and hope and joy and hobbies and food to cook and things to do, only a few stories break through with us. So whilst I'm talking about the news media, we have to remember that underpinning all this is stories and how we sort of understand the world. And that we're talking about how those stories are told and how we get them and how we feel. And so hopefully part one, I'm going to talk about how crap it is, but part two, I'm going to talk about what we can do and how that can make us. It's not just like a political activity to like, you know, change things because we want to be good. It's going to make us feel better. It's going to make us feel better about the world because we're going to actually see each other as humans and be able to do things. But we'll get into that. So I've got to start off with the big bad coming down the line. We got to talk about AI. AI is destroying news media, and that sounds like, oh great, you know, because all the news does is shit, and we'll talk about why that is in a little while. But it's not entirely great actually, because news media, especially the independent media, has standards. It's human beings that are going out into the world and finding out information, recording the facts, and kind of telling them you. And there are rules, there are people that can be held accountable. You know, there is some kind of standard to what kind of stories we're getting from the world. AI doesn't have those things. In fact, there's this theory called dead internet theory, right, which I think is best exemplified by like this story I've seen of an AI Facebook bot, of which there are now thousands. I'm sure you've seen them, millions even, that started creating pictures of Jesus because people liked that. But it wasn't that people liked it, it was other AI bots that liked it. So it liked other AI bots stuff back, which were making spiders or chainsaws. And in a year's time, it started making pictures of half man, half spider with like Jesus with a chainsaw, just mowing things down, right? And the problem is that AI is going to operate at such a scale that it's going to be producing so much content that we can't compete with it. And 99% of the internet is just going to be AI slop. Now, that's the fear. Now, that's may or may not happen. But what definitely is happening, we already see it, is that AI, even though it's just essentially a chatbot, it's just a bunch of programs predicting words. It's just predictive text. It simulates human connection. There was a young man in America who was 13, 14, fell in love with an AI character he had on his phone, so much so that he didn't believe in the real world any longer, and he only believed in the AI character. And he killed himself because that was the only way that he could be with that character that he'd named Daenerys and he thought was from Game of Thrones. The obsession seems bizarre at first, but it's very easy to believe and realize that AI is going to be a way of talking to us that we don't get from humans. AI is never going to be tired. AI is always going to know what you want. AI is always going to be able to talk to you in the way that you want, right? And we're going to forget how to be humans with each other, how to have human connection. And we have to understand this is coming soon. AI can create avatars of your favorite content creators. Say you like, I don't know, Aaron Bastani from Navarra Media, or you know, I don't know, Logan Paul. You say, Logan, tell me about mining rights in Guyana. Tell me how my day should be. What should I do with this? And you can have a chat with them. That's coming out on YouTube in 6 months. our world is going to be fundamentally changed by AI, and it's coming soon, and it's going to be very easy to use. It's not going to be just for geeks and boffins. This is going to be part of our everyday lives, and it's going to change the way that we get stories about the world, because we've got to remember this: it's owned by the elite. It's not owned by you and me. These things are not going to be working for you and me, and it's going to seem like it because they're going to be designed like social media to feed our desires and our wants and our, but not necessarily our needs, not what we actually need from the world. And so the stories we're going to get from the world are going to be everything we want to hear, but not anything that we need to hear, or not everything that we need to hear. And we have to remember this, you know, first off, it's trained on bad data. It's trained on the internet. You know what's on the internet: shit everywhere, shit. And that's not because humans are shit. That's the myth. It's because the internet was built largely to make profit. It wasn't originally conceived as that, but it is largely turned into a profit-making machine. And as such, to keep us on the internet, on various platforms, it plays to the worst elements of our nature and gets us addicted to the worst things, whether it's terror, horror, you know, grotesque, whatever. We know the stuff that's out there, right? And we know that we've all got well into it, right? We know that we're all there. And that's what these chatbots have been trained on. The worst elements of our nature that have been built up over 20 years of profit-making companies just sucking us into it. And if nothing else, we've got to remember this: AI will follow the same process of enshittification as every other big tech thing has done, right? Enshittification, by the way, is just when things get shit because they have to for profit's sake, right? It's what big tech does. Remember Facebook? It was amazing when it came out. We could all chat to each other. It was great. And Facebook grew and grew and grew until it was the monopoly. It was the only way to really get on the internet, to be honest, right? And so then what did it start doing? Putting ads, putting in tools you don't want. Suddenly you're seeing posts you never want. Suddenly you're just arguing with your fucking knobhead uncle all the time, right? Like suddenly you're just arguing all the time, and it becomes a horrible place. And then you go to the next platform, and that's shit, and that's shit. Uber's shit now. Everything becomes shit because the whole process is they get a monopoly and then make it shit to make money. Like that's the only way. So that's what will happen with AI. And we have to try and create a world where we don't spend time on AI. We don't rely on it. We might use it now. And I'm not saying don't use it now, but I'm saying we've got to be aware that we've got to build human connection and recognize that we need to get news stories from somewhere else. If we need to get information about the world. Talking about getting information from the world, social media, we know it's shit for all those reasons I've just told you, and many more. You've got to also remember this: 2 or 3 companies own all the social media, and they decide everything you see. All news outlets, all content creators work for them. They don't work for themselves. They look like it, but they're creating stuff for the algorithm. The God algorithm decides everything. And the God algorithm loves negativity because it keeps you there. That's how they get virality. 70 or 80% of virality is caused by negativity. It's caused by things that you hate, because human beings are hardwired to look for fear and to keep paying attention to it, right? That's what we're supposed to do. It's a good survival instinct. It's terrible if you're using it to make profit, to keep people in a constant state of fear and anger. So we have to understand that's what social media does. There's no rules set for it. They set their own rules. Now, when we hear about a regulator, we're like, oh my God, regulator, ugh, that's either boring or it's bad, right? Like we don't want regulations. Regulators are rules that we set, and say you should play by these rules. We don't want you to do stuff that makes us addicted to shit, right? No, they do what they want for profit. That's what they're about. They shadow ban or kick off anything they don't like. And again, it happens to such small and marginal creators that you're like, yeah, but it's still giving me the good stuff. I'm still addicted. I'm still here, right? So you know, we've got to remember that that's what's happening. We're starting to see more things that we want, but not things that we need. And we have to remember that it promotes things that are bad for us, right? Not good for us. And so, you know, we've got to remember that that is the thing that we're trying to avoid. And we have to get different stories in the world. Sorry, I keep repeating, you've got to remember, because I'm having to click things on the recording thing. Anyways, again, it is also destroying news media's income, and that seems bad, but honestly, I mean, it seems okay, like who cares about news media? But again, we need real people getting information. Do we want social media companies getting us information? Doesn't seem to be a good thing. Oh, and also they work for the US and UK secret services, particularly the US one. They're now arms of essentially American imperialism, and they essentially work for them. So again, we've got to try and get to a world where we're not on social media. And I'm not saying I'm not addicted, we all are, but like this is the direction of travel, Project 2029. So the press, look, it's dying, but it's not dead. It's what news people talk about, even though very few people read printed press any longer. We've got to understand 3 billionaires, you know this, own 90% of the national press. Rupert Murdoch, Viscount Rothermere, the Barclay brothers, these guys who are, 2 of them are lords, and they're all, you know, living somewhere else so they don't pay tax in this country. I don't think, by the way, you should be able to own a paper in this country if you're not paying tax in this country. Like, if you love this country enough to want to tell us all what to think, then pay your tax. Anyways, 3 companies own 75% of the local press. They have sacked all the reporters. There's no reporters in Wales now, local reporters. It's done by AI bots who scrape the internet of local stories that people post on their social media profiles, repackage them, maximize them for the SEO, search engine optimization, and post them in the space of a minute, from 30 seconds from finding it to retyping it and posting it in about a minute. That's what it can do. And again, they're all funded by ads. So they're owned by billionaires, funded by advertising from multinational corporations. They don't upset their owners or advertisers. That's just not what they do. So as I say here, like, neither those advertisers, those billionaires, they don't like me and you. And they've spent all their money and decades on getting us to buy shit we don't want and divide us from each other so we don't get rid of them. We have to understand that that's what the press is. There are exceptions. There's cracks in all of these things, but they're limited. And this is a problem with the press. They have not engendered any sympathy for them. Broadcast media, we'll have to be quick on this one. It's the BBC. It makes up most of the market. It's held to a higher standard, but it's got political appointees in it. It's largely appointed by the government. I mean, the chair of the BBC used to be the CEO of the biggest weapons company in the world. Like, that's the state of the BBC. And so even though it's a better standard, you always get that sense it's slightly off, and there's bits that you complain about, and it's hated by the right and the left. So why is that? Well, it's because of those political appointees. Now, in a couple of years, it's up for review. Its license is up for review, and it could be dead in 10 years' time, right? But there is talk of making it cooperative, something that we who pay the license fee can co-own, and we could elect who runs it, and we could vote on things that we want on it. And I think that's a great idea, and I think that's something we should look at, definitely. And finally, content creators and influencers, you know who they are. They essentially work for big tech. They're serving the God algorithm. They are held to account by their audiences, but again, there's no rules that they have to play to. They work for advertisers like the press. They're also, because of the algorithm, more likely to succeed if they are a bit toxic or a bit sexist. Like, that's what the algorithm rewards. A lot of them involved in crypto scams and scamming their customers, but they get away with it. There are good ones, but you know, we're looking for bits in the system. So here's the good stuff. What can you do? We're getting there. We're getting to the good stuff. Right. First off, independent media. Independent media is great. It's not universally great, because it's like anything that we create, you know, and it's not universally wonderful. But what it is it's financially independent. It doesn't rely on billionaires or advertisers or a state with its political appointees to work. It's ordinary people telling stories for the people, by the people, and it needs to be supported. And that means, like, go on to the IMA. There's the Independent Media Association. It has about 90 members, print and digital publications. You'll find something that you like there, at least one thing. Sign up to its newsletter or its YouTube channel or whatever it is. You know, subscribe, give a bit of money if you can, if you like it. Like, a little bit here and there, it goes a long way, because they're not getting money from anywhere else, and they're ordinary people like you and me. I was one of these people who founded it. I lived on the dole for the first 2 years of setting something up. That's what you have to do. That's not what we should have to do to set up independent media. There's also the Independent Community News Network and Democratic Media Europe, which was a Telegram channel, which you can look for. Media reform. This is a big thing. Media always feels like something that just happens to us, right? Like news just happens to us. Oh, we could do things to change the environment, or like we could, we can moan about our football team. We could, that often just feels like it happens to us actually, but we there's lots of things that we feel we can take action on, even if we don't, right? But we never feel we can do anything about the media. It's just something that we moan about. Well, there are great organizations out there doing stuff about it with great ideas. And the top one, Media Reform Coalition, get on it, sign up to the newsletter, find out what they're doing. They've got great ideas for how the BBC can be reformed, the press reformed. They're the ones who tell you how much the media is owned. Check them out. Hacked Off, set up after the hacking scandal. If you remember it, if you don't, check it out. In fact, I think there'll be a drama coming up about it soon. Impress is a regulator, one of those rules makers that is not owned or run by the government. It's independent. Imagine a people's regulator that just gets ordinary people from society and says, how do you think the media should operate? Here's a code of conduct. Well, we're going to make them all operate like this. And there's over 250 publications that signed up to it. So it's great. Support them. Check out Better Media. I don't know huge amounts about them, but I know they do some good work. And the Media Democracy Festival, 31st of May. Check it out. Like, that will be a place where people talk about what's up with the media, but also what you can do about it. I really think you should get on it if you can. Now, here's some stuff that's coming to fruition in action in April, right? News clubs, fantastic stuff, yeah? Like, these are things that are coming in April, and we'll talk about news clubs and the network a little bit more in a tick, because these are things you could do now. But essentially, they're book clubs or fight clubs for news. It's places where you can get together, hang out, and talk about the news and what to do about it. Same with the network. Get together, do something else that's not news that you love, pottery, running, whatever, right? And talk about a little bit how you can change the world, or at least be part of a network of people who want to do that. Again, there's going to be a shop that's coming out that's merch for the movement, merchandise that you can get that supports great organizations that don't get money from elsewhere, that are independent. And if you're a bit of an organizer, you could get involved in the communications hub. Independent media, influencers, and activists all together in one place. And by the way, you can tell this was thrown together a little bit last minute. Apologies for that. The fund, we're going to launch a media fund that will be split 3 ways, right? There will be infrastructure funding for organizations that no one wants to fund, like the regulator, things like that, like getting things like this communications hub set up. There'll be funds for all the independent media that are regulated, or just equally split between all of them. So if you send money in, it'll get split one way that way, one way that way. But also, it'll also have a project fund pot, and a third of your money will go to that. And you get to vote on the projects that you love to make that happen, right? Which ones get the money. So what can you do right now? If you're looking for something right now, get on a news club, get in touch with us. I'm going to put my contact details at the end. Create a news club, get your mates together once a week, once a fortnight, once a month, however long it is. Talk about a bit of news, get on News Club UK. It's on the socials again at the end, and that gives you something to talk about, or find your own thing. Talk about Love Island, talk about your favorite bands, whatever it is that you love, right? Or good independent media, or maybe even have a moan about the existing establishment media. But always remember, focus on what you can do about it. Try and make it something joyful and fun so that you keep coming back, because the big thing about this is hanging out and breaking isolation. It's not just about changing the news. It's about us spending time together, remembering how to be media, and also check out the network, right? Network, that's any other kind of club. As I said, knitting, fishing, whatever you love, do something you love with your mates, hang out, break isolation. Right. Taken enough of your time. But also a couple of hopes for future. I'll tell you about these things. If you're interested in getting involved in taking on big tech or setting up an aggregator app, then which should put all the best news in one place and enable you to tip it, then check it out. And here we go. Stories of how we understand the world. This is what we have to change, but let's change that. Here you go. Here's our contact details, thomas@ima.press. Check out News Club UK on all the socials and all of that kind of stuff. Get on it. Have a great one. Catch you soon.